you are. Thank you for joining us today. I would especially want to thank the people who have registered previously for this session. As you know, this session was scheduled for June 30th, and we had to postpone it because of internet interruption in Ethiopia. And I would like to also, it's important to also acknowledge that the past few weeks have been very heavy for many Ethiopians as we mourn the lives of the loss of so many lives in Ethiopia. And our condolences goes to the families and friends of people who have lost their loved ones. So welcome to the Talent Conversation Leading Virtual Teams. My name is Sara Tadiwos. I am the founder and managing director of ICANJOBS. ICANJOBS is a talent and workforce development solutions provider based in Ethiopia. And we mainly focus on employers and the workforce in providing consulting, training and development, skills and development, recruiting, and advisory services. As we are all dealing with COVID-19 because of physical distancing and limited contact with others, remote working, leading teams virtually has become our new reality. And depending on the sector we're in or the type of work we do, some of us might have done virtual work before, fully or virtually, or partially, I mean. But surely COVID-19 has accelerated our virtual work into the next level. And there is a huge shift in terms of mindset, as well as how we operate our businesses, how we conduct our businesses, as well as leading our teams virtually in our context. So as you may remember, we have sent a survey to understand our clients, to see, what are some of the challenges they're facing and to engage them in this very challenging time, and how they're actually pivoting into this new reality. And ICANJOBS have collaborated with Kichocheo LLC, based in Washington, D.C., to understand that. And the survey, before I go briefly into the summary of the survey, I would like to welcome Florence to give us a brief introduction about herself and about Kichocheo LLC. Florence.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. We are delighted to have you. My name is Florence Navarro. My company is called Kichocheo. It means catalyst in Swahili because we catalyze the growth of companies by helping them recruiting the right people at the right time for their team. In the past, I have lived and worked in South and Eastern Africa, which is how I came to work with Sara before. And I also worked with Elizabeth at Vital Voices. Kichocheo is doing consulting and training in recruiting. And we're delighted to have you here today. I also want to introduce Danielle McCombs. Dani is in her last years of studies at Temple University in the US in Philadelphia. She's studying political science. She'll be available for her next professional step in December. She's amazing. If you want to hear more, ask me. She's really behind all of this. Any message you've received, the presentation and everything. As we said, we are recording this, and we will be asking you before we start the presentation how you are feeling. So should we do that now, Sarah?
We can do that. Yeah, go ahead.
So I told you we're doing new things. So this is a poll, giving you a few seconds to vote. So good. I see a lot of sunshine. Right, give you a few more seconds. Okay, so people are feeling mainly equivalent sunshine and cloudy, and then there's a rainy and a stormy. No rainbow today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think one of the things that we are seeing in this pandemic is understandably some of us, some days are sunshine, some days are cloudy. So especially when work is involved, there are some challenges and also opportunities that is presenting as a result of COVID-19 in our reality of work. So understandably, through the survey, as businesses are navigating the new virtual reality of work, you have indicated, I think some of you are here already, the people who have participated in the survey, that there's a lot of concern how effectively they can lead and how they can maintain and operate their businesses, maintaining the organizational culture and also sustaining great leadership remotely. And some of the questions and the challenges they've also are facing are what type of virtual tools should I implement to my type of work? And then how do I make sure that performance and productivity is ensured and maintained? And also at personal levels, leaders have indicated that there is a big challenge and that they're facing a lot of anxiety, and there is it's challenging also to keeping regular schedules. And also there's a lot of distraction at home as we have kids and other family members that we're trying to share an area to work. And there is also the social isolation itself is quite a challenge. And then there is also limited accessibility and connectivity in terms of internet and also technological access. And also, we've also seen a result of there is a huge gap in communications among, the staff leaders in terms of communicating virtually. So it's obvious that technology and connectivity is at the heart of virtual work, and lack of it actually doubles the challenge on leaders and employees in terms of productivity, psychological well-being, and also leading our teams virtually in general. I think we have a practical example of that from the past few weeks in Ethiopia. So today we have brought you two distinguished guests to share their experience, knowledge, tools, and best practices about leading virtual teams. Both are leaders and who have previously tried leading virtually, but also experimenting the new virtual reality in our current situation. So I will introduce our first speaker is going to be Pazion Chernet. Pazion is the CEO and founder of Orbit Health Solutions. Orbit Health is an Ethiopian-based digital health information management provider that offers end-to-end digital health solutions for sub-Saharan Africa. Prior to that, Pazion worked for Boeing International in the greater Seattle area as an engineer and international project manager supporting India, Middle East, and Africa. And Pazion brings over a decade of technical and strategic leadership experience leading successful engineers in the aviation industry and now in the healthcare and technology. Pazion studied engineering at Seattle University. And today, from the business and employer's perspective, Pazion will talk about how do we plan and drive business continuity, and how can we create systems, processes, and routines that are adaptable to the strategic plan and culture of the company in delivering values. And what type of leadership skills and attributes and digital competencies do we really need to build and develop in transitioning into the remote working? And he will also talk about some of the challenges and mitigating strategies to lead and manage teams virtually. He lives between Addis and Seattle. And as you know, he's joining us today from Addis Ababa. Thank you, Pazion, for joining us. Our next speaker.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Pazion. Yeah, so our next speaker is Elizabeth Andrews. Elizabeth Andrews is an organizational development consultant that has over 10 years of experience in leadership development and social impact sector. Elizabeth has previously worked for award-winning startups and organizations in Africa, Southeast Asia, and the US. And she has managed global projects and teams previously. And recently, she was the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Programs at Wedu, a social enterprise based in Bangkok that offers online and in-person mentorship and leadership development programming to women leaders across Asia. In this capacity, she overviewed all global programs, operations, strategy, talent, and business development for organizations' largest impact unit. Elizabeth today will talk about what are the best practices that companies adopt to their remote working environment to enhance performance and productivity, communications, culture, technology, teamwork, and professionalism and trust. And what are the best strategies to also lead and manage virtual teams effectively? From the employee's perspective as well, what technological infrastructures and skills, digital competencies do we need to adapt and build in transitioning to the new reality of working virtually? She's joining us today from Bangkok, Thailand, and thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining us. So I will give the floor to Pazion, and feel free to put your questions, comments on the chat box as we progress with this presentation. But we will also have a Q&A at the end of their presentation, and you will get a chance to ask your questions also on this platform. Thank you, Pazion.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. Even as we speak today, first of all, we are leveraging the digital tools to be able to communicate and conduct business. If you consider this engagement as a part of doing some work, I would like to just frame it, the conversation, at least my conversation aspect of it. What does really business continuity mean? And also, ultimately, the challenges are inevitable, but we've never probably have seen such a global challenge that has almost every soul and this planet in most of our days in time. So it's a global problem, but at the same time, there are global solutions. So for me, the way I probably look at it is we have a business because we believe we're creating value. So in order to sustain that value, in order to continue to be what I call to maintain our viability, continued viability of the business of creating value, we need to look into whether it still makes sense whenever we have some challenge to continue to do what we do, but do it differently. So for us, kind of sat back a little bit when this whole Corona incident started happening. We said, who is creating the value that we are creating? Shall we do the numbers validate our continuity into existence? Now the cost is different, the cost structure is different, the customer structure is different, and then also the intended stakeholders are changing rapidly. So we have to really pause and ask the right question. So are we still able to create the similar value and then deliver, help so many people actually get access to the values that we are creating? So the why really mattered for us. And then from there, how do we create this value? Who are involved in the creation of the value? And then from there, we start asking the right question. I mean, the most important aspect is, as you all know, the safety of our employees, because they are critical. When I say our families, so this disease, the health and the safety of each other above and everything else. So from there, we start asking the right question. Is it practical, adaptable? Can we actually iterate? Meaning that we don't have a perfect solution that's out there, but can we actually start doing things and immediately learn from that and then improve? So that is what kind of led us to the next slide, Sarah. So we kind of spend tremendous amount of time on our why. Why do we exist? I mean, we exist because we are actually helping thousands, millions have easier access to healthcare. That's one thing. And the second part is also we are trying to help healthcare providers, clinicians, and what have you, to be able to actually provide better service and better care outcome to patients. And this is a health issue, but it's also an economic issue, but it is also a political issue. So the COVID incident or event, I mean, touched everything that we do, but differently. Now, unlike the old times, patients are now flooding to the hospitals. They have to be reached at where they are at. But at the same time, the solution creators, this value generators, myself, my co-founder, my employees, and our partners, majority of them were stranded in their house. So we have to critically ask and think, how do we actually continue to create this value? How do we actually continue to deliver this value? So some of the things that we initially contemplated was, listen, shall we sustain our work for a while? Or shall we continue to do what we do aggressively, but differently? So we did some survey within some of the clinics and health center and medical centers, the hospitals that we partner with. Some of them decided to close their shop for a while. Some of them continued and we knew what to do. So we immediately decided to really trigger what we call telecommuting, working from home, but and also offline, because one of the several challenges been in this part of the world. It's just not only COVID. I mean, the whole basic, fundamental, necessary infrastructures are sometimes also struggling due to COVID, because some of the workers probably are not going to the office. So some of them have furlough, some of them have part-time work framework. So we really have to ask the right question. Can we actually work offline? We came up with a plan. Can we actually work just telecommuting, but connecting offline? We try to do that. But then again, the nature of our work, everything has to come together like pieces in the puzzle, so that the solution offering has to have a full bodied image. And then again, we focus on continuous improvement. So I'll talk about on the next slide how we thought about and methodically designed a flow in the process to achieve what we've imagined to do. So the very first thing that we've done is assessment. What is the current state of our business, the current state of our clients, the current state of our locality, our environment, transportation, our working environment of our employees? Can they work from home? Do they have continuous access to electricity, continuous access to internet, or what have you? So it wasn't just one simple question that we have asked. So from there, we also evaluated our existing tools and processes that we are using. And we came up with a plan. We try to make that plan as comprehensive as possible. So we said, what is the preferred approach? What is the best mitigation plan? Like, for example, some of our employees did not have electricity for a day or two. So they were completely disconnected. Even their phone was not charged and they were not traveling. So even if we announced to be able to work from home, but reaching out to understand where everybody is at wasn't that easy. So for a month and a half, about a month and 2 weeks, everybody was working from home despite all these challenges. But then again, we also had to come up with a better plan whereby communication will continue, whereby employees not only just continue to work, but continue to interact with clients. And all these things were happening virtually. I think the next natural step we've taken is execute. Execution is everything, because there's no perfect plan. But there is a better plan, but there is a plan that can be made better. So we always say, do, learn, improve is our mantra. So we put the plan in place, we created a rhythm, we checked on the team, the coherence. So one of the things that we've done, for example, every single day in the morning, we call it daily huggle, which is in the morning, whoever has access to electricity, internet, phone call, everybody calls in. Everybody checks on each other. How is everybody doing? Where are we today? What did we do yesterday? What worked? What didn't? Is there anything we need to tackle? Then we split into departments. This were happening virtually. And then also at the end of the day, we had a end of day call. So we all call in and then we just try to update each other. And then what that did to us is it helped us create a rhythm and also cover for each other's work. But at the same time, we're also evaluating our clients' engagement. So I believe the rhythm was extremely useful when everybody was not seeing each other. We haven't seen each other for a month and a half. So that was very vital. So it kind of allowed us to maintain a sense of coherence and continuity. I think the other thing is really monitoring. As a leader, as a business leader, as a sort of director of this operation, we have to also look into what's working, what's not working, and how can we actually create a better alignment of the people, what we call the 3 Ps: the people, product, process. In a way, the team and the company can only continue to exist, our value creation, and then again continues to be viable to our clients, our partners. So reminding everybody, the reason why we have jobs is because we are continuously producing was add value to control, to do really better and collectively. And then it wasn't really necessarily 100% on my shoulder once people got it. And now all of us were interconnected. And so everybody was doing what they could. And then of course, after a month and sort of half, we did thorough evaluation, monitoring, and then we decided to sort of open it up. And people start coming. We applied, the different sort of safety measures. We have sanitizers and masks and what have you, keeping distance and what have you. Yeah, definitely, we appreciated those times. But then again, it also gave us an additional energy to regroup, refocus, and put our energy in a better alignment to continue performing what we are best known by, really engaging with clients and helping patients, and clinics and pharmacies. So has the COVID spread slowed down? No. In fact, in Ethiopia, it's just rapidly growing. We don't even know where we are in the curve. So part of work that we do we also assist the COVID response national team in the digitization in automation area, whereby better data, better understanding of the flow of data can help us make better decisions for the government, for all responsible organizations. So our value is obvious, but how we continue to create, maintain, sustain, and continuously deliver that value has everything to do with pausing, monitoring, adjusting, and aligning. So I think with that, I mean, what I call this goal-oriented, this aligned and measured outcome-driven operation is something that we would like to adapt. Like in a software world, we always say, we have to be nimble, agile, and it just has a connotation of continuously executing, reiterating, tweaking, making it better, and then improving and continuously move forward. So that same concept is actually applied within our business model. So right now, it seems like COVID might be here for a while. But we've managed to sort of use a hybrid model. Some people work from home sometimes, some people work from health facility, a clinical, the clinician's location, hospital, what have you. But we connect through these several tools that we implemented to help us monitor progress and also do work collectively. And finally, if you go to the next slide, that sort of sums up we've really been imagining and we've been trying to really communicate. The only constant in life is change. Hence, whether we adapt to change properly, we learn and improve, or will become irrelevant, meaning that as a business, we cannot continue to exist. Our viability will diminish. So we are a learning organization. We believe we've completely gotten out of the COVID mess, so to speak. But as a part of solution provider to the country and also to the global sort of village, so to speak, we have to continuously adapt. So that is what got us so far, and we will continue to monitor. And thank you so very much. I know it's a pretty short presentation, but with that, I'm excited to hear any of your experiences, questions, opinions, ideas. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Pazion, for laying the foundation for the conversation we're having today. Of course, we're going to have Q&A, and then we'll have more questions and comments in the next session as well. I would give the floor to Elizabeth to give us the practicality from her own experience, as well as in terms of technology.
Great, thank you so much, Sara and Danny and Florence, for inviting me to speak today, and also Pazion for sharing your perspective and experience in the last couple months with your company. It's interesting to hear about the hybrid approach that you guys have taken. Before I get started, would love to utilize the chat feature and just get a sense of, we've all kind of been at home, or most of us have, for the last couple of months, and it seems like we're going to be working from home for the foreseeable future. Just to get a sense, do you like working remote, or do you not like working remote? So you could just use the chat feature, which you can find at the bottom of your screen, and just write, you like it, you don't like it. Just want to get a sense of where people are in this working from home journey. Okay. Give a couple more seconds. Okay, so I see some people like it mainly. Some people say I like it, but don't love it. Daniel says, too distracted to work from home. Alex says about 50-50, but I also started my job during COVID, and my boss is in California while I'm in DC. Pazion likes it. Evie says, I love it, but I miss physically interacting with colleagues. Sarah, I like it, but not for a long time. And Eden likes it very much. Great. So it seems like for the most part, everyone's okay with working remote, which is good, because it sounds like we're going to be working remote for a while. But as Sara says, I'm a international development consultant, and my journey with working remote has actually been a little bit different in terms of, during COVID, I know a lot of companies had to very abruptly transition to working from home, but I've actually been working remote for the last 3 years. The company that I was previously at, that was based in Bangkok, we started in a physical capacity. We were in an office, but as our company was evolving and expanding, our model was changing in a way that we started opening up satellite offices all over the region, to the point where even if you lived in Bangkok, you worked remote. We ended up closing our office just because we were hiring so many people in different cities. And so I started that journey about 2 years ago. And then now as a consultant, I also work for other globally distributed companies who are also fully remote. So what I want to share today is just some of the best practices that I've learned over the last few years from an individual perspective, in terms of just trial and error and trying to figure out what works for me to stay productive and sane and not too distracted while I'm at home. Also from a manager perspective, in terms of, how managers can best lead and coach their teams during these times, especially when their teammates are not necessarily sitting right next to them or in the same building, but having to manage people in a virtual capacity. And then also from the organizational perspective, in terms of the types of systems and processes and structures that a company can put into place to kind of navigate this transition, as a lot of us and all of their employees and over the next couple of months and maybe next year and a half or so, the types of systems that they can put into place to navigate this transition from in-person to virtual work. So I'll start with the more organizational perspective in terms of more high-level systems and structures. So the first thing that I always tell partners and organizations that I work with is to really make sure that as an organization you have a very clear roadmap of where you're going for the year. A lot of organizations and companies have their 3 to 5 year vision, but they also most likely do some sort of strategic planning ahead of the year to really kind of finalize what are their objectives going to be for the next 12 months and what are their key KPIs that as an organization they want to reach, but then also, each department kind of what they're responsible for and what they'll be accountable for. And I think having those very clear org-wide objectives that then trickle down to each of the teams and all of the team members will be that compass for people throughout the year, no matter where they're working. And I think if people have very clear direction and understanding of their objectives and KPIs that they want to meet, that's going to help boost productivity and performance. And, a lot of the KPIs and objectives that companies set at the end of 2019 probably got thrown out the window during COVID. A lot of companies had to then very quickly transition in terms of, trying to figure out their either service or product lines and, kind of reassess and reset, kind of what Pazion was referring to. But, just making sure that for the next 6 months of this year, there is some sort of clear roadmap. And then the second thing I wanted to say about productivity is when you have whether that's a regionally or globally distributed company, or even if your company, everyone is in the same city, but they're not in the office, is to make sure that all of your data and your kind of knowledge management system or your, knowledge platform is centralized and it's accessible to everybody. And this is going to be really important, particularly for organizations and companies that work across different time zones. You want to make sure that, people can do their job during the hours that they're working, and they can access the, the budget reports, the templates, the processes, the slide decks, things that they need to do their job, and they can get the information that they need and it's available to them. So having some sort of centralized platform for that. And that might look like, like Google Drive. I know a lot of the companies I've worked for, that's what we've used. But there's also other more expensive options as well that a company can utilize. In terms of technology and communication, the key thing that I want to kind of stress here is that the goal in terms of, virtual organizations is you want to be as productive in a virtual capacity as you are in person, in terms of working with someone face-to-face or someone where you can just walk over to their desk. And the way to go about do that is really trying to standardize your systems as an organization in terms of the types of communication platforms that you use. We call that asynchronous communication, which basically means, you don't need to be, or you can communicate with people and it doesn't have to be in real time. So that could look like your Slacks, your Microsoft Teams platforms, Google Hangout, Google Chat. But really choosing a platform as an organization and standardizing that so that everybody is using that to communicate with one another. And a lot of these apps and platforms, you can integrate other apps into it. You can integrate with your Google Drive, you can integrate with your Calendly, with your CRM systems. But just making sure that everyone's kind of on one platform. And then kind of based off of that, just making sure that again, if you are a globally distributed company and you have a lot of teammates that are, working different hours than you, is just setting a culture where you're using very clear and concise language. Because a lot of times if you're working on a document or a project with somebody and they're working maybe 12 hours ahead of you, when they go to bed that night and you are then starting your workday, you want to be able to pick up where they leave off, or if they have left questions for you and you need to respond to them, you want to make sure that communication is as clear as possible, so you're not then wasting half a day trying to seek that clarification. And the other thing as it relates to technology is to encourage video calls as much as possible. And that, I think, helps to really humanize relationships within an organization and company, especially during these times when people can feel really isolated when they're not, working with other people, or they're working from home. Maybe they haven't left their home in a couple of months. And so particularly for one-on-one meetings, team meetings, org-wide staff meetings, encouraging everyone to use a video call. That doesn't necessarily mean every meeting you have, you need to jump on Zoom, because that can also be very tiring. But I think seeing somebody's face helps managers, but also anybody in the office, to really kind of digest the material. They can read the other person's body language. It's just easier to have that type of conversation. Next slide, please. In terms of culture, I've been hearing a lot of organizations struggle with burnout. And that's, I think, more likely as you transition to a virtual capacity, because many people that I've been speaking to are feeling that burnout because they no longer kind of have that traditional 9-to-5 schedule where they go into work, they work their standard 7-8 hours, and then they go home. Now, because you basically live where you work and you work where you live, it can feel like you're always on all the time. You're always on email, you're always getting pings sent to your phone or your computer late at night, or maybe you're working in a place that is disrupting your sleep, and vice versa. And so I think as an organization, there are policies and expectations that you can put into place where people don't feel like they always have to be on, and that they can continue with that 35, 40-hour work week. And that really is going to start at the top, and having senior leadership really be an example and model for that. The other thing I wanted to say about avoiding burnout culture is, as a company, being flexible during this time. A lot of people, particularly parents who have their kids now full-time at home, who are not in school, the traditional 9-to-5 schedule may not work for them anymore. And so to be open to flexible schedules for your staff, that might mean a staff member working a few hours in the morning and then a few hours at night. But if you have the systems and the structures in place, again, you have those communication platforms, you have your centralized data, you have collaborative documents that anyone can work off of. It really won't matter as much when people are working, because the work will be fluid. And then the other thing about kind of maintaining your organizational culture is, for now, hopefully at some point we can have staff retreats again in person to reconnect with our colleagues. But in the meantime, I think there's a lot you can do in terms of virtual activities to maintain connection. The company that I'm working for right now, we do virtual game nights. It's not required, but it's just a fun way to kind of reconnect with colleagues and just have fun for a couple of hours. Another company that I worked for, we have a WhatsApp group where we share articles or a book of the month. So just something that you feel like you can communicate with your colleagues more as friends and less kind of work focused. And then in terms of teamwork and collaboration, I do think it's important, especially when everyone's working from home and hasn't seen each other in a while, is to make sure that you are still having your recurring organizational meetings or one-on-one meetings with your team members, and then your department-wide meetings, whether that's once a week, once a month, what have you, and really kind of standardizing those formats. So Pazion was talking about, in terms of the agile and learning organizational principles that they use. We try to use those as well in my current company. We call them retrospectives. So at the start of team meetings, it's a quick check-in. How is everybody doing? How are you feeling today? How's your week going? And then we go into, you know, what's working, what's not working, what do we want to do more of, what do we want to do less of? And it's that kind of thinking in terms of, you know, doing something, learning from it, you know, reflecting on it, and then iterating and trying to do better next week. And I think something that can really help to keep people focused in virtual meetings is to stick to some sort of format and, you know, standardized format, but then also having a collaborative document that everyone has access to as they're on video speaking. They're following the agenda. People are typing in their notes and check-ins on the agenda to make it as interactive and inclusive as possible. Next slide, please. And then I also just wanted to quickly talk about, you know, how managers can encourage and coach their teams during this time. And so I think the first thing is, you know, as a team to, you know, coordinate the hours that everyone's working. Like I just mentioned, you know, the traditional hours may not be working for some people. So to kind of just have those conversations with team members, you know, be open to flexible schedules, and then just communicating that to the team and being transparent about it. So I always ask my teams to, no matter what their schedules are, to just, you know, put it on their Google Calendar so that it's transparent for everyone else on the team so that they can schedule the meetings accordingly. The other thing as a manager that I found really helpful is to set some sort of daily or weekly office hour where you have an hour of your day where anyone on your team or, you know, across departments can just kind of come for 10 minutes, you know, come into your Zoom room and for quick questions or for quick responses. It's not necessarily for like a long hour brainstorm, but if you just have quick questions, I find that that gets you away from this back and forth email exchange, which can be draining, and just, if, you know, 1-2 minute conversations with your manager to kind of get questions answered. The other thing as a manager, I think it's really important to, again, have very clear goals and objectives for every member of your team so that they have, that there's buy-in and they're supportive of kind of the direction that the team is going, but also they have that compass so that they know what it is that they are responsible and accountable for over the next quarter or for the next 6 months. And I think, again, having some sort of transparent and visible work plan and KPI tracker, project management sheets that everyone on the team can access so that, you know, everybody is able to work, again, different hours, can understand what's going on the team without necessarily needing to wait a certain number of hours for a response. And then the other thing as managers that I recommend is meetings are going to be really important, especially now, to check in on your teammates in terms of how they're doing, and really just, you know, taking that space for 10 minutes to just see how they're doing, how is their workload, you know, how, as you as a manager, can you support them? You know, do you need to be open to different hours or reassessing their work plan, or, you know, putting some of their objectives and KPIs on the back burner for this quarter because of specific challenges that the organization is facing, and, you know, having those conversations and transparency with them. You know, taking that time to review KPIs, and I think most importantly, to provide, you know, that two-way feedback stream. So having that time devoted for those, you know, team meetings, org meetings, and one-on-one meetings to give feedback to your teammates, but also for them to give you feedback as well. So again, to what Pazion was saying, as a learning organization, you're constantly iterating and improving on your processes and your people operations. Next slide, please. And then the last thing that I wanted to quickly talk about is, you know, how can we as individuals, you know, work to be productive and efficient, but also do so in a way that's healthy. And I think there is definitely things that as managers, you can also encourage these healthy practices among your teammates. So the first thing is, you know, again, establishing and communicating work hours, encouraging your teammates to set up some sort of conducive home office. You know, personally, my family and I live in a pretty small apartment. And so my office has been my kitchen table for the last 2 years. But this is really kind of my devoted space. And I have this routine where I come in the morning, I set up my laptop, I do my work. And when I'm done with the day, I close my laptop and I put it away. And that for me kind of signifies my work day. And that kind of helps me create that barrier and distinction between my work hours and my home life, because again, that boundary, that physical boundary, is no longer there because I'm not going into a home office. The other thing is to really own your calendar. So, making sure you're still scheduling time for lunches, for personal times. I really like to schedule my meetings accordingly so that I have meetings that I try as much as possible not have. I have days where I'm not in meetings, and that's really my time to do my my strategy, brainstorming, working on reports, basically just undisrupted time. Again, encouraging video as much as possible to really, again, kind of keep that human connection. And then lastly, to, again, really kind of take that time to check in with your colleagues and, have that empathy, knowing that these are really strange times, very challenging for a lot of people, and to really just check in, see how people are doing, and again, ask if there's ways that you can support them. And the final thing that I'll just add here is, everybody is different. Everyone has different experiences with working remote. Some of your team members might need a little bit more coaching than others. Others, with other teammates, you can be more hands-off, as long as they kind of know what their goals are for the quarter, just quick check-ins is all they need. And for others, they might need more day-to-day interaction and, longer check-ins because maybe working remote is something new that they're navigating. So just remember to kind of adjust your style accordingly to your teammates' needs. So I think that's all I had for now, but I'm looking forward to your questions, but also learning and hearing from all of you in terms of other strategies and tips that you can share. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I think we will go ahead and see if anyone has questions or comments to make. Would like to give the floor first to our audience. If you don't have any questions, I think I have a question. If anyone is not ready to go, I would like to ask. I know practically. I would like to ask Pazion first. I know you've had some challenges in terms of even the mindset of people working from home in Ethiopia specifically, where they're working from home means like you're at home. It's there is a lot of like, how do you really make sure that you're not really crossing other chores of your household with work? So how do you make sure that there is deliverables are coming on time in that few weeks of time that you've done virtual work? And how do you motivate your staff, especially when there is other things going on outside of work, to make sure that they're staying focused? And for Elizabeth, how do we balance as women, especially we have kids, we have other household responsibilities, and how do we make sure that we stay focused and balanced in terms of the work-life balance in virtual working?
Mute. Okay. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay? Hello?
We can hear you. We can hear you, Pazion.
Yeah, we could.
Okay, very good. Okay, very good. So it's a very interesting question, because I know Elizabeth was saying that having empathy so I think telecommuting or working from home is not new for me. I used to do that in my previous jobs when I was in the States. So I'm okay with that. But in Ethiopia, majority of our staff, I would say probably half our staff work with their family, like with their parents. They share probably the same room. We have, it's the living situation is pretty confined in Ethiopia. So it's not common for someone to have his own or her own bedroom or working station or work home office, right? So, but the the thing about it is, for example, I called one of our employee didn't call, and she's like, "Hey, Pazion, sorry, I have to help my mom this afternoon at home. It was short, home chores." So, so can you remain strict about, no, you're actually at company time versus really understanding what is going on? Her mom is sick, she has to help. It's just very humanistic thing to do. But at the same time, we have also business responsibility. And so it's just the awareness, understanding of responsibilities, but complement that with understanding this situation that we all are in. So, for example, when light is not there, I don't expect anybody to do any work. Their laptops are dead, their phones are dead. So there are several things that we call for understanding. But at the same time, I wanna make sure we are all striving towards delivery. So although people have other distractions, they can also make time to actually make sure they are delivering what they are assigned to, what they are promised to deliver. So it is a mutual trust. They know micromanaging people, but at the same time, I would like to see results. So they, so we always have to communicate and create some balance. So you have to be human instead of strict. Now, the other part is constantly reminding why we exist as a business. So some companies were shutting down, firing their employees, which I really hate to do that. And from the get-go, it's not to scare anyone, but the reality of it is that if we continue to have clients that we are serving, so we have to continue to do so that we will have a viable existence as a business. So it's not just only the burden on me as a business owner or a founder, what have you, but it is our common interest. So that is critical. Once people understood whatever they are doing has actually tangible value, and then they are valued as a human being, they try to manage. And I've seen that time and again. I've seen people work on Sundays. I didn't ask them to, but they're all striving to do the promise that we've made to clients, because it's very important to us. So in a way, shared vision, shared values are critical to constantly, continuously inspire, empower people to do what they do best. Beside that, really go an extra mile to understand what's going on. For example, I live by myself. I really have no distraction per se, except when lights out or internet is not there, what have you. But that's not the reality for several of my employees. So just understanding their individual reality, and then try to really create some do better. It's something that's expected of me as a leader. And that's exactly what I would potentially would rather have if I were to put myself in their shoes. So it's really a balancing act, Sarah. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Pazion.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think probably quickly, if I add one thing, the video, I know Elizabeth stressed having a video, which is great. Unfortunately, sometimes video takes lots of bandwidth. I'm speaking in terms of Ethiopia. So we had such difficulty to be on video calls. So we decided to do, okay, let's have audio calls. But I totally agree that the human touch sometimes is just one-on-one. I just call someone, hey, how are you doing? That is something that I use to really inspire, continuously motivate people. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I piggyback on that?
Sure.
Yeah. So I agree with Pazion and also Elizabeth. We have to, and I touch base with my employees, and I try to make it a short call, once a week, make some time for it, and try to get them to talk a little bit about what's not work related. Because, this is kind of the conversation you have, quote unquote, at the water cooler or something like that. Hey, what movies have you seen? How's your family feeling? How are you getting along? How's it working out with you? And in my case, I have two newlyweds on my team, and they're both working from home. So kind of talk about your child and all these other things, and just keep it away from work for a minute or so. I think that helps. To me, I think that helps a lot.
Jimmy, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm so sorry. My name is Jimmy Ortiz. and I work out of Washington D.C. So I'm managing a nice diverse virtual team, and I work in the international community.
Okay.
But most of my employees are based here in DC now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks for it.
Sorry about that. I'll remember that next time.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you. Until Elizabeth goes to answer the question about the work-life balance, there is another question that came, I think, from Alex Davidson. Any tips on encouraging colleagues to turn on the video? I know there's a limitation of, it eats up all the data if you're in Ethiopia, if you open the video. But I think, how do you make sure that we actually encourage people to have the self-confidence to really reveal themselves, provided that they have the connectivity and all the accessibility during virtual meetings and virtual activities?
Well, I guess for me, I think setting expectations and setting the right tone ahead of time. We're doing this to mitigate what happens, and then also the reason why we allow people to work from home is because of the right thing to do is for their own safety. So they appreciate that. Now, from there, we set the tone. There are certain things we need to do to adjust. And it's just very small amount of price to pay for them. They're staying at home. Like some companies require and demand their employees to come to the office. But we didn't feel comfortable exposing our employees and their families. So once they understood why we're doing what we're doing, still they're flexible enough to see, okay, you know what, I'll turn on my video. So this is not dating, this is business, it's serious. Even if we're human and try to make it as much as human as possible, but we have responsibility. So if we don't fulfill our responsibility collectively, we don't succeed. So for me to see them doesn't necessarily have a different connotation. So we set the baseline, and then as Sarah indicated, I don't necessarily enforce it every day because of the connection and connectivity and what bandwidths and what have you. But it was a part of the expectation for them to call and for them to turn on their video whenever connection is improved or what have you. So it's really a trade-off. I think I put it that way, setting the right expectation and why that expectation is put on them or on this new way of doing business. I found it to be very, very an easier way for them to adapt some of this instruction that we're providing.
Great. Elizabeth.
Yeah, Alex, that's a great question. So I think with the video, it's really kind of the org culture that you create. So I'll just share a quick story. So I used to not like video at all. I always just kind of preferred audio. And then there was a woman on my team. Every meeting we had, she always had her video on, and she was so consistent with it. And then after a while, I was like, wait, she always has her video on. Maybe I should put my video on. And then, so she kind of really encouraged me with her consistency to use video. And I find that when particularly senior leadership or managers turn on the video, it kind of just creates this culture of, hey, when we do team meetings, we turn our video on. And I think it also helped me when, for meetings, I started seeing, especially now, since everyone's working from home, there might be this expectation like, oh, I need to be all dolled up and, have this perfect kind of background, and, my child is running around in the background or there's noise. And once though I was in team meetings and I saw, the CEO or the managing partner wearing a sweatshirt, or, they had chaos in the background, I realized, oh, okay, it's okay to be human. And they just created this really kind of encouraging environment where it's kind of like, come as you are, and it's okay, like, to come in a sweatshirt, and obviously, like, not for client meetings or anything, but as a team. And I think just kind of creating that comfort helped me then start using my video more. It kind of took that pressure off. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yes, if you can also point out about like balancing work with family.
Yeah, so I really love remote because I have a small child, and I think working remote has really afforded me a lot of flexibility with keeping my career while also having a very young daughter. And so for me, what's been really helpful over the last couple of years is to have a routine in terms of my set hours that I work every day. And I think that kind of, because I don't go into an office, I don't have that time on a train going into the office and coming back. Having that routine again, where I set up my, my laptop in the morning, I take it away at night, and to really signify my workday, and having very set hours that I put in the calendar for my team to know these are my work hours, has been really helpful for me. And I think the other thing, one of the best pieces of advice that I got from a former boss was to own your calendar. And what I mean by that, and I kind of referred to it earlier, is, setting, blocking out time in your calendar for lunch, or for if you need to take a coffee break, or you just need a half hour to go walk around the block because you've been sitting there, or you need an hour to go do some errands, if you need that personal time. And I think blocking that time then allows you to allocate the rest of your time accordingly. I even also use my calendar to allocate times when I'm even not in meetings, but when I need a few hours to work on a report or a budget. And I feel like that type of organization of my calendar just keeps me focused on the day and having that kind of set routine. And then the other thing that I wanted to add is, I think, flexible schedules as well helps me with the work-life balance, because the reality is, my daughter is kind of a 24-hour job. So having, I have my work hours, but I also have very much owned the fact that, work is, I have to kind of set hours that I can work, and just being really transparent about that with, clients that I work with, partners, teammates, I think has allowed me to navigate my career and motherhood in a way that feels authentic to me.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. I think Florence has a question.
Yes, unless anybody else wants to ask something. I don't see any other questions in the chat. And then we'll wrap it up. So both Pazion and Elizabeth, you've worked in international teams. Jimmy, in our participant, said he has an international team. Pazion, I think your team is mainly all in Ethiopia right now, but you're gearing up hopefully to be in other countries. How do you have any guidance for us on how to manage cross-cultural communication in an era of virtual? And honestly, when we were preparing for this and we were talking about our audience and how we ask people how they're feeling, we were facing that, trying to find a tone that allows for everybody's different communication style, either personal or culturally different.
So,
wait, hold on. Jimmy, do you have something to add maybe? And then Pazion and Elizabeth?
Oh, okay. I thought you were asking me the question also.
Sure.
I worked on virtual teams before. I think one of the things, and I think Elizabeth brought it out, was the clear and concise language. And I've noticed that a couple of, we're talking about, they were hired during COVID. So sometimes the company language is a little different. We have these acronyms and we have these terms. So to have that language is very important, that people be able to understand what we're trying to communicate. People are living with a lot of, and we always have baggage that we brought to work a little bit, but this fear about what's going on with the kids' schools and their jobs, it becomes difficult. So I think we always have to humanize the conversation, but of course, still try to lead productive teams and cohesive teams. So we have to be a little more flexible that way.
Thank you. Pazion?
Pazion, you're mute. You're on mute, Pazion.
I think I didn't observe that. Thank you. So I think for us, what worked is we have advisors and investors, and also a couple of virtual partners that are located in Europe and in the West, in the US. So plus for me, prior to moving to Ethiopia or coming here now for work, I was conducting the business from Seattle. So now I'm here, I'm learning, also adjusting. Someone is saying they cannot see me anymore. I think probably it's a little bit dark. All right, let's see. How about now? It's better.
It's better.
Sorry. So I guess understanding how the teams are communicating collectively or individual. For example, here in Ethiopia, communications are not just natural. I mean, people say enough to answer your question, but unless you have leading questions, people don't go in so much detail explaining their thoughts. So just learning to ask questions, but also asking them to really write out things, give them some framework. I mean, those things matter. And then again, it's just sort of setting up the right tone and culture for the team, and eventually they know what you expect of them, and the communication flows like that. Yes, still we're a bit struggling maintaining smooth communication with some of our investors and partners overseas because of it's not just the time factor now. It is connectivity. We were completely disconnected for 15 days, over 15 days. So now just bringing everything online, going back to creating harmonizing engagement across several stakeholders, it's not an easy thing, but it's constantly something that we strive to get better at. But I guess setting the right tone, and then once you understand the team or the individual or the partners, what have you, based on those understanding, probably setting the right expectation is something that I personally do as a leader, and what we do as a team.
Great. Elizabeth, do you have any input or insight?
Yeah, not too much more than Pazion said. In my current role in Asia, the working language at the company is English, but I work with a lot of people where English is not their mother tongue, and so I think that's really where why I keep kind of pushing the video, because I think for many people it can just be just easier and more productive to just kind of hop on a call and clarify if you have quick questions, rather than making somebody kind of type out something longer that may not be as natural to them. And I think when you start to see an email chain becoming very long because maybe you're working on something that's a little bit more complicated or complex, or there's a chat going back and forth between multiple people on a team, I find that can be just super productive, because then suddenly 2 hours of your day is just in an email exchange. Whereas you could just take 10 minutes, everybody jump on a call and kind of figure it out, right? Kind of just come to a resolution, and then everyone can go back to work. But I also do recognize the challenges that Pazion was sharing about internet connectivity. So I think there's definitely going to have to be a balance with that.
Yes, I think also sometimes people, I think contextually in Ethiopia, I have experience of people when you send them an email because they're not sure how to really frame the email and respond it, they prefer to call, or they prefer to pick the phone, like you said, Elizabeth. So it's also okay to kind of integrate that into communication, as well as making sure that you're integrating not only the virtual world of video conferencing, but also the phone as a tool, especially in the context of Ethiopia, for especially other cultures to understand that if someone is not responding an email, it doesn't mean that they're ignoring you. It's just that they're not sure how to respond to that. So using other tools might also help open up the communication to understand each other. I think there is one more question from an audience, Kifle, that how do we manage tasks and which needs team effort or teamwork? And do we have the concept of teamwork existing in the virtual working environment?
I think I can take a quick stab at that. So for us, for example, we use Trello for development related work. So we have different developers, software developers, and DevOps. They have a specific task, and we also have a Scrum event, which is basically reviewing what's been completed. And also we also created a mini communication board within the Trello framework, meaning that any kind of communication that's happening between developers, some of the decisions that they've made to manage or to actually implement or deploy that specific task, we do that. But we also have what we call the Asana board. The Asana board is designed, at least for my team, we designed it per department. So each department have this dashboard whereby they collectively update their task. Now, individually, the team can function as a sub-team or as a department, but collectively, that dashboard allows us, for example, the account managers will communicate with our developers, but the account managers work directly facing clients. So the teams are in a way sub-teams, but collectively as a company, we have to pull everybody together and function as sort of one body of a team. I think knowing how to divide roles, how to put some indicators, Elizabeth was saying KPIs, and then knowing those milestones and deliverables, both internally and then externally to our clients. And then as long as there's clarity into how we do those activities, and team works together, and just do not necessarily for every conversation, every department meeting, or have you, but collectively, aside from our stand-up meeting of the week, and then that's when the valued by the teachers. So that's how we manage the activities across teams.
Yeah, we've kind of lost you, Pazion, towards the end.
Exactly. A bit.
Yeah, we didn't hear the last part. I'm sorry.
So, yeah, the last part. Combination of setting the deliverables, setting function as one body of team, but collectively bringing everybody's contribution into what we call a common company dashboard. That's where we communicate across different departments and different teams. But yeah, this was happening virtually, but as being a tech company, so using technology to communicate is something that is kind of the baseline expectation, if you will. Can you hear me okay? I know my connection is in and out a little bit.
Yeah, we heard you. Yeah. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think totally. I think it's very possible to maintain this concept of teamwork even in a virtual environment. For context, I was based in Bangkok, but my whole team was spread out across the region. I had been working for over a year on a particular project with team members I had actually never met in person, but we spoke every day on the phone, and I had developed basically this kind of virtual relationship with them. And then when I finally did meet them, about a year into the project, that was obviously really great that I got to meet them in person. But I do think it's possible. And again, I think it comes down to, as an organization, the type of culture you set in terms of feedback, being clear in terms of what the objectives and tasks are, and having the right platforms in place. And so to your question about kind of how do you manage tasks, I think that can take a lot of different forms. I think, depending on who the project manager is, they might have a weekly meeting where they're kind of discussing, hey, this is what we want to complete this week. And then everybody kind of knows what their deliverables are, what they're accountable for. We also tend to use, the company I used to work for, we used, Google Drive a lot. So we were constantly working with each other on, Google Documents or Google Slides or Google Sheets, as we were working on a proposal or a budget, or, we were putting together a slide deck. And we really made use of the kind of the chat feature within those documents to, comment on one another's work and make edits. And then also using, platforms like Slack where, if you're all kind of online at that time, to ask, quick questions about, hey, where's this document? Or, hey, can you follow up with this person? Hey, can you, drop in your CV in this folder for the client? And so I definitely think that there's ways, whether it's more immediate or kind of looking at it more from a weekly or monthly perspective, that you can work together as a team so that everyone is very clear in terms of what their specific roles are.
Great. I think, thank you for, you just added about the importance of collaborating with Slack as well. I think Alex asked about any thoughts, emails versus other messaging apps like Slack or WhatsApp. And also she added Google Suite has also helped with for collaboration, like you mentioned. And we've also used Telegram in Ethiopia a lot, I think, for
yes.
messaging. That is very one of the leading apps, I guess, in terms of accessibility, and everyone has Telegram. But we've also used WhatsApp and other apps such as Hangouts for other, messaging and collaborative apps as well. So, and unless there is any burning question, I think we're about to wrap up. I will give 1 minute to see if there's anybody has any.
Sarah, I was going to ask, there was a question from Alex, and I can take a stab at it.
Okay.
She had asked about kind of, from my understanding, the different kind of uses of email versus Slack versus WhatsApp.
Yes.
So I tend to think of Slack as kind of the platform that I use during work with my colleagues, whether we're all online or it's very work focused. I mean, I know that there's different channels that you can create that maybe are not work related, but that's really kind of the platform that we use during work to communicate with each other, and to kind of keep that thread where you can go back and kind of look through the conversations if you need to remember what you're responsible for or what somebody said. For WhatsApp, I've used that actually with all my organizations. We've always kind of just had a WhatsApp group as an organization. And as I was saying in the beginning, it's kind of the more personal communication medium that we use to kind of share pictures of our family, of our holidays, great book reviews, articles that we've read. It kind of, I guess, depends on the culture of your organization, how personal people get. But we've also used WhatsApp when we used to travel for projects. The project team would create a group so that on the ground we could communicate very easily with each other. But now I'm finding that we use WhatsApp when we're facilitating an online conference or a summit, or we're facilitating an online workshop. That facilitation team is in a WhatsApp group, and we use that kind of in the background. So we're focused on the screen and on the group chat, but then, on the participant chat box. But on the side, as facilitators and project managers, we can still communicate with each other on WhatsApp. So I've been finding that to be a really great resource for as we transition to kind of virtual services and products.
Great. I think with that, we will wrap up today's session. Thank you so much, Pazion, for joining us today. And I know you guys are very busy, both Elizabeth and Pazion, for really coming and giving us a wonderful, insightful, and informative session. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And that will be it for today. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. And we will
Appreciate it.
send you a follow-up survey and the recording.
Yes,
And
excellent.
tell us-
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Look forward to it.
Thank
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.